Present day. Present time.
It still amazes me that 90s and early 2000s anime and movies managed to predict that the internet won't help to overcome social alienation and loneliness. Of course, aesthetically, the futuristic vision of the 90s sci-fi art can seem naive today with its focus on actual material objects, but experiences, emotions, and anxieties of the future internet user were captured very well. Even works in cyberpunk genre give us these images of future world where all there is the atmosphere of loneliness and despair. Recent studies conducted in different parts of the world show that humans find it more difficult to find connections with others than ever before. The internet is filled with self-reports on loneliness of all sorts, romantic loneliness, lack of friends, and general alienation. Some blame loneliness on social media apps and the internet, some on postmodern culture in general, some on capitalism, some on men, some on women. The list goes on and on. But the goal of this video essay is not to find someone to blame. I want to explore loneliness from an existential point of view. Loneliness is an emotional state in which a person typically experiences a powerful feeling of being cut off, disconnected, or alienated from other people. Loneliness is a universal problem. It has no gender, no race, it cannot be attributed to one personality type. And although loneliness is perceived as a malaise of 21st century, loneliness as a problem has existed since the dawn of humanity. I would like to begin with the discussion of complex relationships between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness can go hand in hand with solitude, but they are not the same thing. Solitude can be constructive and productive, whereas loneliness is mentally and physically stressful. Solitude implies voluntary social and emotional disengagement with other people. Solitude can give us space for creativity, rest, and in general for personal growth. A lot of philosophers had periods of solitude in their life, and it worked for them, I guess. A philosopher, Pascal Bleuse, once pointed out, all the problems of mankind are due to the inability of man to sit quietly in one room. Bleuse thought that because we never really learn the art of being alone, we can seek the company of other people. And we do that not because we want to know them, but just because we need some distraction and we are scared of solitude. When I was in the final year of writing my PhD, it was the first time in my life when I had an almost total solitude. During third year, we had no classes, so I did not see my peers. At that time, I also lost touch with some of my friends, so that was rough. So in my free time, when I was not writing or doing my research, I would always have something playing on the background, like a podcast or a lecture, to occupy my mind. According to Pascal Bleuse, what I was so afraid of was the silence of being. But just because we can use the noise of the world to block out the discomfort of being alone, doesn't mean that discomfort will go away on its own. Eventually, I had to stop aimlessly distracting myself and spend some time self-reflecting and understanding who I am, who and what I like, and what actually bothers me. In 20th century psychoanalysis, loneliness was often understood as a way to reveal the essential characteristics of the I, the self. Loneliness is necessary as a stage of building an independent character, as a means of self-knowledge or individuation, as Carl Jung wrote. Psychiatrist and philosopher Karl Jaspers also viewed the ability to be authentic and independent as a crucial component of actually securing intimacy with other people. I cannot be myself unless another is himself with me. If we can build an independent character on our own, can we survive in the long term on our own without opening up to other people. According to 20th century existential philosopher and writer Jean-Paul Sartre, metaphysically speaking, loneliness is a default state. All humans are born lonely and die lonely too. It seems that the only chance to overcome loneliness is to love. However, Sartre thought that the project of overcoming isolation and finding the intimacy with another person is doomed to fail, because we can never actually merge into each other. We can only have a temporary illusion of the unity, and when it fades away and love ends, we feel ourselves even more lonely than before. So Sartre here presents a pretty common anxiety that we can never understand another person and that we can never be authentic selves with other beings. And even if that is true, does it mean that we should just give up on opening up to other people? If we talk about loneliness on a philosophy channel, we cannot skip one of the most pessimistic philosophers of all time, Arthur Schopenhauer, and his hedgehog's dilemma described in one of his books. Schopenhauer wrote that people are like hedgehogs or porcupines on a cold winter's day. In order to prevent themselves from being frozen, hedgehogs would try to huddle together, but then their quills would hurt one another, which made them again move apart. Society functions in the same way. We find the right distance, not too close to be hurt, but not too far away. Or we can find internal warmth and prefer to keep away from society in order to avoid giving or receiving trouble or annoyance. As we know from Schopenhauer's biography, that was his way of living. Schopenhauer's tale was later quoted by Sigmund Freud in his group Psychology and the Analysis of the Ego, where he tried to understand why long-lasting human relationships can end up in hostility and mutual disgust. Freud was interested in the degree of intimacy that is necessary for our survival. How can we simultaneously crave intimacy and be scared of it? Well, because being intimate with another human beings means being more vulnerable to them. People who know us the best can hurt us the most. So, according to Freud, the coping mechanism for this phobia of being close to other individuals is to be attached to some group, like a class, a church, or a nation. Being a part of some collective is not a problem on its own, but these connections cannot substitute intimacy, because being a part of these big groups does not require a person to show their authentic selves. It just requires you to share at least one feature in common. And here is where new technology and the internet comes in. Of course, Freud was living 100 years ago, and technologies of mass communication were only developing at that time. But in a way, he and a lot of artists and writers predicted how mass communication technology will not solve the problem of loneliness. There were early internet enthusiasts who viewed the internet as life-changing technology that could free life from the chrysalis of matter. And it definitely is a great invention that gives people opportunities and advantages never seen before. But it is safe to say that the isolation of people paradoxically is increasing in an ever-expanding high-tech world. I think that such anime as Evangelion or serial experiments Lain were brilliant in depicting that state of loneliness and, as a result, the problem of identity in the modern era. Serial Experiments Lain is an anime series about a detached and alienated character named Lain, who is trying to find out who she is. In the real world, she is shy and isolated, but her online persona easily connects with everyone on the prototype of the internet called Wired. As time goes by, Lain finds herself deeper and deeper in the digital realm, where she finds out her true nature and almost unlimited power. But the only meaningful relationship that Lain has is actually with a real girl, a classmate, Arisu. And although everything doesn't go perfectly in these relationships, it is still something that attaches Lain to reality and helps her to build an identity. I only exist inside those people who are aware of my existence, says Lain. Once again, without others, one becomes lost within oneself. In a way, Lain goes through several options of overcoming loneliness proposed by Erich Fromm in his work The Art of Loving. The first one through orgiastic rituals like going to a club. The second one is conformity, finding a group of friends by adopting their behavior. The third one through creativity, when Lain tries to solve the mystery of her own existence by creating a DIY computer and connecting to Wired. And lastly, through the only real solution to overcome loneliness, love. And this love is not idealized or sentimental. It is a symbiotic union. It is love with care, love with a willingness to actually know the other. Evangelion is not as serious about the internet, but it references Schopenhauer's hedgehog dilemma in one of its episodes. And it is not a coincidence, since the main character Shinji suffers from his insecurities and fear of being open to other people. Throughout the series, we see how Shinji struggles to understand others and be understood in return. And at the end of the series, Shinji is provided with a choice: to end his suffering of trying to become close to other people by becoming a part of the whole entity, to literally connect with souls of other human beings. No pain, no misunderstanding, no suffering, but also no personality, no rewards for learning something new about someone you care about. The creator of the series, Hideaki Anno, provided the viewer with two endings. The one where Shinji chooses to become part of a collective soul, and the alternative ending where Shinji chooses individuation with all its pain and suffering, but also freedom and hope. There is still a debate about which one of those endings is the real one, or at least desirable. I personally prefer the second ending because it feels like a more earnest and realistic way of dealing with alienation. By going through the process of individuation, we have to face the world around us and let people know us. Yes, that can hurt. Yes, we might be rejected, but as an essayist Tim Kreider once wrote, if we want the rewards of being loved, we have to submit to the mortifying ordeal of being known.